It all began on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind that makes you slow down and notice every small detail. Emily had been sitting in the corner of her husband's office, fidgeting with a cup of lukewarm tea, feeling more like an intruder than a wife. She had always admired Daniel's dedication to his work, but lately something had changed. He seemed distant, lost in thoughts she couldn't reach, and that distance had left her restless. She watched him through the glass partition, a familiar scene of concentration, and sighed. The hum of computers and the quiet chatter of colleagues created a strange kind of calm, but Emily's heart raced with unspoken questions. She had tried to talk to Daniel about how he seemed withdrawn, but his responses were polite, clipped, and evasive. And then came Mr. Howard, Daniel's mentor, a man with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to see through everything, entered the office with a calm authority. He greeted Emily with a gentle nod, as though he had known her longer than just a few years of marriage. She felt an immediate sense of trust, the kind you can't explain, and her curiosity piqued. "Emily," Mr. Howard said quietly, motioning toward a small empty conference room. "May I have a word?" His voice was soft, deliberate, and oddly comforting. Emily nodded, following him through the hallway lined with framed accolades and photographs of Daniel's accomplishments. Once inside, Mr. Howard closed the door behind them. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and old books, a warm, grounding scent. He gestured for her to sit, and Emily did, her nerves buzzing. "I know you're worried about Daniel," he began, leaning back in his chair. There was no judgment in his tone, only observation, and I understand why. He's carrying a lot right now, more than he's letting on. Emily swallowed hard. I don't know how to reach him. He's so distant, even when I try to be there for him." Her voice cracked slightly. She hated how much she was letting her worry show. Mr. Howard nodded slowly. "Sometimes the people we care about most need space to face what's inside them. They aren't pushing you away. They're struggling silently. But there's a way to help. A quiet way, without forcing them to speak before they're ready." Emily's curiosity deepened. "A quiet way," she repeated. "Yes," he said, leaning forward. "It's about understanding, observing, and being patient. You don't need words to reach him. You need presence, a calm anchor he can return to, even if he doesn't say anything right now." His eyes softened. "And sometimes it takes a gentle nudge from someone he trusts to help him see what's important, without pressure, without judgment." Emily nodded slowly, letting his words settle. She realized how often she had been trying too hard to talk, to fix, to explain. Maybe she hadn't needed more words. Maybe she had needed to simply be there. "But how do I do that?" she asked softly. Her heart ached to connect with Daniel again, to break through the invisible wall that had grown between them. Mr. Howard smiled faintly. "Start with small gestures. Watch, listen, and understand. And most importantly, believe in him and in your bond. Sometimes the quietest support speaks the loudest." Emily left the office that day feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She realized that love wasn't just in grand declarations. It was in small, consistent acts of presence. She could do that. She would do that. And maybe, just maybe, Daniel would notice. Not because she demanded it, but because it was there, steady and unwavering, like a lighthouse in the storm. As she walked back home through the soft drizzle, Emily felt a spark of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. A hope that maybe, with patience and quiet understanding, things could truly become clear. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Her mind lingered on Mr. Howard's words, and she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something he hadn't said yet, that could change everything. Emily returned home that evening with a mixture of hope and nervous anticipation. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that felt almost like a pause before something important. She set her keys on the counter and took a deep breath. Daniel was in his study, papers scattered across the desk, his laptop glowing softly in the dim light. She hesitated at the doorway. For a moment, she thought about what Mr. Howard had said, about presence, about being a quiet anchor. She didn't need to confront Daniel or demand answers tonight. She simply needed to be there, steady and calm. "Hey," she said softly, stepping in. Daniel looked up, startled, then managed a tired smile. "Hey, Em." That small smile made her heart ache. She moved closer, leaning on the doorframe, giving him space but letting him know she was there. For 10 minutes, they sat in silence, the only sound the occasional tap of his keyboard. Emily felt the tension in her chest ease. She didn't push. She didn't ask questions. She simply existed in the same room, a presence he could lean on without even realizing it. Later that night, as she prepared tea for them both, Emily reflected on Mr. Howard's words. He had hinted that Daniel's struggles weren't just about work. They were deeper, more personal. She wondered what kind of weight her husband had been carrying all this time without sharing. The next morning brought an unexpected moment. Daniel's phone buzzed with a message, and he stiffened. Emily noticed, but said nothing. Instead, she brewed coffee, moved quietly around the kitchen, and hummed a little tune, a song they had once danced to in the living room years ago. She remembered Mr. Howard's advice: small gestures, quiet acts. By mid-morning, Daniel appeared more relaxed than she had seen in weeks. He didn't speak much, but he let her pour his coffee, smiled when she handed it to him, and even lingered for a moment to talk about nothing important at all. Emily realized that this subtle shift, this slow reintroduction of trust and comfort, was exactly what he needed. Later that afternoon, she decided to visit Mr. Howard. She wanted to understand more, to prepare herself for whatever came next. The rain had stopped, leaving a gentle mist in the air. When she arrived, he greeted her with the same calm presence, as though he had been expecting her. "You've begun well," he said quietly, gesturing for her to sit. "You are patient, observant, and present. That is exactly what he needs." Emily nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. "But how do I know if I'm doing enough?" Mr. Howard smiled faintly, his eyes warm. "You won't always know. That's the point. Love isn't measured by immediate results. It's measured by constancy, by staying steady, even when the other person is unsure, even when the path isn't clear." Emily listened intently. Every word sank in, weaving a thread of understanding she hadn't had before. She realized she had been trying to force solutions, trying to fix things before she even understood them. "You see," he continued, "sometimes people need a mirror more than advice. They need to see their own strength reflected back at them. That's when clarity arrives, not from what you say, but from what you show through your actions." Emily left the office feeling a quiet determination. She understood now that her role wasn't to solve Daniel's problems for him. It was to be the reflection he needed, the steady presence he could trust. She would do this, quietly, consistently, with patience and love. That evening, she returned home and found Daniel sitting in the living room, staring at a blank page in his notebook. She sat beside him without saying a word. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he turned his page toward her and smiled. It was a small moment, almost invisible to anyone else, but to Emily, it felt monumental. She felt the first stirrings of connection returning, fragile yet undeniable. She realized that Mr. Howard's advice was not just about supporting Daniel, it was about understanding the unspoken language of love itself. As the night drew on, Emily watched him, her heart quietly brimming with hope. She sensed that something significant was on the horizon, a truth that could finally bridge the gap between them. But she didn't yet know what it was, or how deeply it would touch their lives. The following week, Emily noticed a subtle shift in Daniel. He was quieter than usual, but not distant, just thoughtful, reflective. Emily learned to read the small signs: a deep exhale, a lingering look at the window, a faint smile that appeared when he thought no one was watching. She realized that these little moments were Daniel's way of processing, a silent dialogue she had once struggled to understand. One evening, as golden sunlight spilled through their living room, Emily decided to leave a note on his desk. Nothing elaborate, just a simple message: "I'm here, always." She didn't expect a response, but later that night she found Daniel had folded the note neatly and placed it in his notebook, right beside his work papers. It was such a small gesture, yet it spoke volumes. The next day, Emily felt the need to check in with Mr. Howard again. She wanted guidance, reassurance that she was on the right path. When she arrived at his office, he greeted her with the familiar calm, as though the weight she carried was shared between them. "You're doing well," he said simply, his tone filled with quiet confidence. "You've learned patience, you've learned observation, and most importantly, you've learned trust, the trust that he will come to clarity in his own time." Emily nodded, her eyes misting. "But what if I miss something? What if he's struggling more than I realize?" Mr. Howard leaned forward. "Then you continue. You continue being present. Sometimes the journey isn't about solving the problem, it's about walking alongside the person, even when the path is uncertain. And there is one more thing you must understand." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Emily waited, her heart tight with anticipation. "Sometimes the truth they carry is heavier than you can imagine. They might test your patience, your understanding, even your love. And when the moment comes, when they finally speak or act, everything becomes clear, but only if you've held steady." She felt a chill, not of fear, but of realization. Daniel's silence had not been neglect. It had been the gravity of something he needed to sort through himself. And now Emily understood that her quiet strength was more powerful than any words she could have spoken. That evening, she returned home to find Daniel sitting on the couch, sketching in his notebook. His usual guarded expression was softened by concentration. Emily hesitated, unsure whether to speak, and then decided against it. She poured them both tea, placed it on the cable, and sat nearby without a word. Minutes passed. Daniel glanced up, and for the first time in weeks, their eyes met with unspoken understanding. He didn't need to explain. She didn't need to ask. Presence had done what words could not. Later, as night fell, Emily finally heard him speak, in a quiet, tentative voice. I've been thinking a lot." His words were careful, deliberate, as if he was testing whether the moment could hold honesty. She stayed silent, letting him choose what to say. "It's hard to admit sometimes, but I've been afraid," he confessed. "Afraid of failing, afraid of letting people down, afraid that I can't, handle everything I'm supposed to." His gaze fell, and Emily reached out, placing a gentle hand over his. "You don't have to carry it alone," she whispered. "I'm here. I'm with you." He looked up then, eyes glistening. "I know, and I felt it, even when I didn't say anything. You've been here, steady, patient. I see that now, and it makes all the difference." Emily's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and love. She realized that Mr. Howard had been right. The quiet support, the constant presence, had been exactly what Daniel needed to begin opening up. As the night grew late, they sat together in the dim glow of the living room, hands intertwined, hearts slowly easing the tension of weeks spent apart emotionally. Emily knew that there was more to come, more truths to uncover, but for the first time, she felt that they could face it together. Yet, as the moonlight traced the edges of their quiet embrace, a small thought lingered in her mind, something Mr. Howard had hinted at but not fully explained, a feeling that a revelation was approaching, one that would make everything crystal clear. The following week felt different. Emily sensed it even before Daniel said a word. There was a subtle lightness in his steps, a quiet ease in the way he moved around the house. He still carried the weight of his responsibilities, but the tension that had shadowed him for weeks seemed less oppressive. Emily realized that her quiet support had begun to create a bridge back to him. One evening, Daniel returned from work earlier than usual. He was thoughtful, hesitant, as though he had something important to share but wasn't sure how to begin. Emily, recognizing the moment, poured 2 cups of tea and set them on the coffee table. She sat down across him, giving him space to speak in his own time. After a few moments of silence, Daniel finally spoke, his voice low and deliberate. I think I understand now everything that matters to me." Emily nodded, encouraging him without interrupting. She felt the room grow warmer with his honesty. "I've been so focused on what I think I should do," he continued, "that I forgot to pause and see what's really important. And I kept pushing you away because I thought I had to solve it all myself. I didn't realize that you being here, quietly, that was what helped me start to see clearly." Emily's eyes welled up. She had never felt so deeply understood, so connected. "You don't have to carry everything alone," she said softly. "We're in this together, always." Daniel's hand found hers, and for the first time in weeks, he held her gaze without distraction. "I've been given a lot of advice over the years, Em, but there was one conversation, one piece of guidance that finally made me realize how to face it all." Emily's heart skipped. She knew immediately he meant Mr. Howard. "Your mentor?" she asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "Yes, he said something that I didn't fully understand at the time, but now it makes sense." He said that clarity doesn't come from trying harder, or talking more, or solving everything at once. Clarity comes from noticing what matters most and trusting the people who care about you to help you find it. Emily felt tears slip down her cheeks. She reached out, brushing them away gently. "You found your way, and we found each other again." He smiled, a mixture of relief and gratitude in his expression. "Yes, and it feels lighter now. I can breathe again, knowing that I don't have to do it alone." The next few days brought subtle changes. Daniel was more present, more open. They laughed together during breakfast, talked about plans without tension, and even shared quiet moments in the evening that felt effortless and genuine. Emily realized that the walls that had been between them were dissolving, not through grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but through small acts of understanding, patience, and love. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Emily brought up Mr. Howard's advice. "You know," she said softly, "his guidance wasn't just for you. It helped me understand how to be here for you in a way that really matters." Daniel nodded. "I know, and I see it now. Your presence, your patience, your quiet support, it's what helped me face my fears and doubts. I can't thank you enough." Emily smiled, a gentle warmth spreading through her chest. She realized that love wasn't about fixing everything instantly. It was about showing up, even when it was hard, even when the answers weren't clear. And through that quiet presence, they had found their way back to each other. But as they embraced the comfort of newfound understanding, Emily couldn't shake a lingering thought. Mr. Howard's words had hinted at something more, a deeper truth that had yet to reveal itself. She sensed that the final piece of clarity was close, something that would change everything between them in ways they hadn't yet imagined. The weekend arrived, bringing with it a rare quiet in the house. Emily and Daniel had spent the morning sipping coffee by the window, watching the soft glow of sunlight play across the garden. There was a peaceful rhythm to their movements, a shared understanding that had been missing for weeks. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that a revelation was waiting, a moment when everything would click into place. Later that afternoon, Daniel suggested a walk. The crisp air felt refreshing, and as they strolled side by side, Emily noticed a certain lightness in his step, a subtle confidence that hadn't been there before. He kept his gaze forward, but occasionally glanced at her, as if measuring the right moment to speak. Finally, he stopped, turning toward her with a steady, thoughtful expression. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I've been carrying more than I realized." And it wasn't just fear or doubt. It was my own stubbornness, my reluctance to accept help. Emily listened intently, heart pounding. "I wanted to handle everything on my own," he continued. I didn't want to burden anyone. And in doing that, I forgot something important, that I'm not alone, that I have you. And that guidance, the advice from Mr. Howard, it wasn't just words. It was a mirror. It reflected back to me what I had been too blinded to see, that love isn't about solving everything. It's about showing up, steady and unwavering, and trusting the people who care about you to be part of your journey. Tears filled Emily's eyes, but this time they were tears of relief and joy. She reached for his hand and he held it tightly, as if anchoring himself in the reality of their shared understanding. I understand now, he said quietly. All those moments I felt lost, you were there. And through your patience, your quiet love, I finally see clearly what matters. I see us. I see how we can face anything together. Emily felt her heart swell with a profound sense of connection. Everything Mr. Howard had told her, everything she had tried to do with patience and care, had led them to this moment. The distance that had grown between them, the unspoken fears and quiet struggles, they were all dissolving, replaced by trust, understanding, and love. They walked the rest of the path in silence, their hands intertwined, hearts aligned in a way that words could hardly capture. Every step felt lighter, freer, as if the weight of weeks had been lifted. Emily realized that clarity had arrived, not through dramatic revelations or sudden change, but through steady, quiet acts of love and presence. That evening, back at home, Daniel pulled Emily close as they sat together in their living room. I think I finally understand, he said, resting his forehead against hers. The moments that mattered weren't the big gestures or the words we said. They were the small, quiet ones, the times you just were here. And that presence made all the difference. Emily smiled softly, feeling it deep, lasting peace. I'm always here, she whispered, and I always will be. As they held each other, the last piece of the puzzle fell into place. The guidance, the patience, the quiet support, they had all led to this clarity, this understanding of what truly mattered. Emily realized that love didn't need to be dramatic or flashy. Its power was in constancy, in being a safe harbor for each other when the world felt overwhelming. For the first time in weeks, they didn't feel the pressure of uncertainty or the weight of unspoken words. They simply existed together, fully present, fully seen, and fully loved. And in that moment, Emily knew that everything had become clear. Their bond was stronger than ever, and the lessons of patience, trust, and quiet understanding would carry them through whatever life had in store. The rain had stopped, the sunlight had softened, and the world felt calm. Emily and Daniel sat together, hands intertwined, hearts at peace, knowing that the journey they had shared, through silence, reflection, and quiet love, had brought them exactly where they needed to be. And in that stillness, Emily smiled, realizing that sometimes the quietest advice, spoken softly at just the right time, can change everything.